It was the beginning of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend in Wilmington, North Carolina, and 30-year-old Ebonee Spears was not doing well. Ebonee, who had been diagnosed with lupus the year before, had seemingly been having negative reactions to her medication. The bright, friendly mother of one was acting disoriented and paranoid. Things got so bad that her parents contemplated having her involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital. The next evening, January 15th, 2016, Ebonee told her parents that she wasn't coming over for a planned dinner. That night, when her boyfriend arrived at her home, Ebonee was gone. No one has seen Ebonee after that day. After 6 years of misinformation and muddled timelines, investigators and Ebonee's loved ones are no closer to finding out where she went than right after she walked away. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell you the stories of those who never came home. Today, I want to tell you the story of Ebonee Spears. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you for joining us once again. If you are a regular listener, then you know that last week's episode was our 100th.
Absolutely mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, completely insane.
That we're still doing this, that people are still listening.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So thank you, everybody, for listening and supporting us. This has been an incredible journey and hopefully one that we can continue to do.
Yeah. I mean, especially on nights like this when you come home late from work and I text you as I'm putting our son to bed, hey, get your shit together. We're recording tonight.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the maybe 4 hours of sleep that I'm going to get tonight.
That'd be great. Last week for our 100th episode, you're the one who told me about it and I had no ideas. So I went to our Patreon members to use them for content, basically. And they really came through, which is how we ended up with that. But there were so many good ideas. And a few listeners put forth specific cases. And one of them was the story of Ebonee Spears. So it was Rebecca G. who suggested her case, and as soon as I read up on it, I knew we had to do an episode. Ebonee is a woman of color who was last seen at the Wilmington Police Department.
She was last seen at a police department.
Yep. And her disappearance has gotten basically no national press. The local press has covered it fairly well, but I really didn't find anything beyond Wilmington. And both her family and investigators believe that the answers are held by someone in the area. So I feel like it's important to get her story out there as much as possible. But speaking of Patreon, we've had a few more people join us over there. So thank you very much to Tiffany N., Chrissy L., Gemma H., Lindsay C., Dason W., Claire, Shauna H., Glenda S., Lisa H., Sasha I., and Melissa F. We appreciate all of you so much.
Thank you so much for contributing and making this possible.
Yes. If you'd like to join us and get these episodes early and, more importantly, ad-free at any tier, you can do so at patreon.com/attwgpod. All right, so now that we've gotten that business out of the way, let's get into the story of Ebonee Spears. Ebonee Shanetta Spears was born in Wilmington, North Carolina on May 12, 1985 to Harriet and Alfonso Rivers. Ebonee is the couple's youngest child, and Harriet said that her daughter was sweet and energetic and always the baby of the family, even after she had a baby of her own. Ebonee was around 17 when she gave birth to her daughter, Anaya. She was a devoted mother with a great support system, so Anaya thrived.
Anaya?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome name.
Yeah.
That's such a cool name.
Yeah, it's really good. Aniya. Because Ebonee was so close with her family and they still babied her a bit, even though she was 30, they knew immediately when something wasn't right with her. Their friendly, responsible daughter had been acting paranoid and depressed lately. Ebonee had been recently diagnosed with lupus, a chronic illness that attacks the immune system. When somebody has this disease, the immune system can no longer tell the difference between invaders like viruses, bacteria, etc., and healthy tissue, so it just attacks everything. And this causes inflammation throughout the body and often leads to organ damage.
Yeah, I had a neighbor who you actually met, who had lupus, and she had like incredibly arthritic hands.
Right. It causes joint damage. Like it's very tough on the joints. So a lot of times, yeah, you have arthritis, you have trouble walking. I mean, just basic things like that. But also, according to lupusresearch.org, neuropsychiatric lupus affects 80 to 90% of patients with lupus.
So it attacks their brain?
Yeah. And symptoms can include brain fog, which is called like lupus fog, headaches, and depression. It sounds as though Ebonee had been dealing with these issues, and because of that, she had been prescribed an antidepressant, though like I'm not sure how long she had been on it prior to her disappearance. So I don't know the exact timeline of all of this, but it does sound like, you know, she was having a lot of the symptoms, the classic symptoms of lupus, including depression. So she was taking medication to combat that, but it was not going well for her, basically. Ebonee's family had, of course, noticed the depression, but it seemed as though she was also experiencing side effects from the medication she was on. On January 14th, the day before she went missing, Ebonee's paranoia and confusion was so bad that her parents decided that they needed to step in.
Do we know what medication she was on?
Not specifically, no. They just said that she was on medication for her depression. Harriet Rivers said that she took Ebonee down the street to the police station to get help. Her father, Alfonso, later told reporters, quote, "She was confused. She was saying people were stealing things from her, following her around," end quote. Once they got to the police station, the front desk person called EMS saying, quote, "Her father just came into the front desk and said that she was having a breakdown and said that she needs to be admitted," end quote. So paramedics came and evaluated Ebonee. According to Harriet, they determined that she wasn't a threat to herself or anyone else, which is, as you know, the main criteria when you're in a situation like that.
Correct.
Right? Because you're not going to like diagnose them further.
Well, I mean, EMTs can't.
Right. Exactly.
They're concerned with immediate threat.
Immediate
or
danger.
Immediate danger.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if they don't pose a threat to themselves
or anyone else,
they're not saying that they're going to hurt themselves or hurt anybody else. I mean, there's nothing an EMT can do.
Exactly. So, you know, according to Harriet, they said that she was fine to go home. However, WPD says that officers and EMS did advise Ebonee's parents to have her involuntarily committed to a mental health hospital.
Right, but even involuntary commitment, it's the same criteria.
So what you're saying is if they determined she wasn't going to hurt herself or others, then you can't really have her involuntarily committed.
Correct. I mean,
even if you are her parents, right? Because she's 30.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just go around like loosey-goosey throwing people in, mental health hospitals.
Yeah. And again, I mean, inadvertent callback to our episodes on Angela Green, the mom who disappeared, and her husband told their daughter that, oh yeah, the mental health people came and kidnapped her in the grocery store parking lot.
Yeah,
and
that's not a thing.
Yeah.
So involuntary commitment to a mental health facility, I mean, certainly contact them and they'll do an evaluation, and the evaluation will be by either a psychologist, a counselor, some sort of level of therapist who, at the very least, would probably say the same thing. Okay, we can't involuntarily commit her. However, we can start building some sort of plan for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, I mean, that is a good step, but like,
Right.
you can't, like, if she's not a threat to herself or others, they're not going to throw her in a mental health facility.
Right. And so even if, what the police said is true, that they advised the parents that they should involuntarily commit her, like, that's still not a thing.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right. And so I want everybody to keep that in mind as we go along with the story. So, basically none of the what you were saying, like having, therapists talk to her, like none of that happened that night. Basically what happened is she was, by all accounts, having some sort of an episode. She was in the parking lot of the WPD police station, the headquarters actually, which happened to be very close to her apartment. And, EMS was called. They were evaluating her. There were officers there. They determined she was not a threat to herself or others. They said she could go home. Her parents, who took her in, said, okay, she's more lucid, because this whole process obviously took a while, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So by the end of it, Ebonee was apparently like more lucid and more like her normal self. And so her parents are like, okay, you said she's not a threat. Like, it's fine. We'll just take her home with us to keep an eye on her. Because, they live nearby.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So they drove her to their house and she spent the night. Very reasonable from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Chronological age is your birthday. Biological age is how old your body really is, and it's the strongest indicator of disease risk and mortality. The True Age and True Health Combo Kit measures biological age versus chronological age and your current pace of aging. I've been using True Diagnostic for a while, and it's been so interesting to me to get the data that normal blood work just doesn't cover. My true age is pretty close to my chronological age, but there's always room for improvement. True Age tracks the health of 11 organ systems, including your heart, brain, and lungs. True Health checks over 105 vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and other health markers. But best of all, if you get the combo kit, it gives you 3 aging actions and 3 health actions to work on each quarter. So it gives you goals that you can actually achieve to improve your health. You order online, the kit ships right to your door. It's a quick, simple finger prick at home, and then you just drop it in the prepaid return package. You just follow the recommendations for the 90 days, and then you retest to see your progress. It uses advanced epigenetic testing to analyze over 1 million biomarkers. It's trusted by top longevity clinics and health professionals, not just consumers at home. And right now, my listeners can get 20% off at TrueDiagnostic.com using code ATTWG20 at checkout. That's TrueDiagnostic.com and use code ATTWG20 for 20% off today. Choose True Age, True Health, or the combo kit as a one-time purchase or a subscription. If you've been listening to this show for a while, then you know that I'm a podcaster and a realtor. And on some days, like today, I have to do both. I spent all day in a courthouse watching a trial that we're covering, and then I had to drive an hour and a half away to put a lockbox on a new listing. It was a long day, to say the least, and normally I would have been exhausted at about 3 when I still had several hours to go. But I've recently been adding everyday dose into my morning routine, specifically into my morning coffee. And let me tell you, I was driving home late tonight and I felt great. Everyday Dose is coffee plus benefits. They combine high-quality coffee with powerful ingredients like lion's mane and chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost focus, and give you clean, sustained energy all day long. It tastes just like coffee without the downside. No crash, no jitters, just clean, sustained energy. Right now for Black Friday, get 61% off your first Coffee Plus starter kit, a free A2 probiotic creamer, and over $100 in free gifts. Plus, enter for a chance to win $100 cash or get your entire order refunded. Visit everydaydose.com/ATTWG or use code ATTWG at checkout. Did you know there's an online cannabis company that ships federally legal THC right to your door? I'm talking about mood.com. They have an incredible line of cannabis gummies, and you can get 20% off your first order at mood.com with promo code ATTWG. These are functional gummies that are optimized to kick in as little as 15 minutes and take you to the mood you're looking for. I am not surprised to learn that their Sleepy Time Advanced Gummies are their current bestseller because let me tell you, those things work. And I've tried everything, and these get me to sleep, keep me asleep without feeling groggy the next morning. They also have CBD gummies for gentle relaxation and pain relief, or even Mind Magic gummies for deep work and enhanced creativity. And everything just ships discreetly right to your door. Best of all, not only is every Mood product backed by a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, but as I mentioned, listeners get 20% off their first order with code ATTWG. So head to mood.com, find the functional gummy that matches exactly what you're looking for, and let them help you discover your perfect mood. And don't forget to use promo code ATTWG when you check out to save 20% on your first order. Try it today at mood.com. By the next morning, Friday, January 15th, Ebonee seemed fine. The family had breakfast together, and then Ebonee went back to her house. Her father drove her back home.
So at this point, we're still thinking it's an adverse reaction to the antidepressants that she was on.
Basically, because again, like lupus itself can cause psychiatric issues.
So maybe it was a mix of both?
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, potentially. Because this whole lupus diagnosis was relatively recent. I don't know exactly how recent. Certainly within the last year. I don't know how long she had been on medication for it, but it was definitely a whole work in progress, you know? But Ebonee was definitely not acting like herself at this period in time.
Right. But by the next morning, by the 15th, the morning of the 15th, she was relatively back to normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to herself.
Right. To the point where her parents were like, okay, you know, we'll drop you off back at your house.
Whatever triggered this has either passed, or if it's the drugs, then they left her system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it was, they're like, okay, you're okay enough that like we'll take you home and we can leave you alone and not be concerned about your welfare, you know? So that's what they did. So it's been reported that Anaya spent Friday night at her grandparents' house. So I'm assuming that she went to school that day, Friday the 15th, and then, you know, went to her grandparents' house after, or something along those lines. And Ebonee was also supposed to come over to her parents' house that day. They were all going to have dinner together. So, you know, that morning on the 15th, her dad dropped her off at her apartment. But again, Ebonee, you know, she had a car, like she could drive. She was supposed to come over to the parents' house where her daughter was staying, where Anaya was, and they were all going to have dinner together. And I don't know if this was just a normal thing that they did, or if it was like a, you know, I kind of want to keep an eye on you type situation.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, either way, there's a solid plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it sounds like.
Yeah, no, they definitely had plans. And again, this was a very close family. So even if they did want to keep an extra eye on her, like this is not something that was out of the ordinary from what I understand, you know, like they lived near each other. They were very close. She went over there a lot. Anaya stayed over there a lot. So did, you know, Ebonee has siblings. They have kids. They're all over there, basically.
yeah, like you were saying, even if this was something extra that they were doing to quote unquote keep an eye on Ebonee, like it wouldn't seem out of the ordinary for Anaya.
No, yeah, it wasn't crazy. Anyway, her dad dropped her off in the morning, though. They were supposed to have dinner. But in terms of between that like morning time and the evening, I don't really know anything about Ebonee's timeline. I have seen mentions of her having previously worked at a few places, including the gymnastics studio where Anaya like currently took classes, as well as her being a temporary employee at the local university. But I'm not sure where she was that day, if she was working, if she had to work. Like, we don't know anything about her day.
And this is Friday the 15th.
Yeah.
And this is the day that she went missing.
Correct.
So do we have any harder time of when her dad dropped her off at the apartment?
No, just after breakfast is what we know. Now, what we do know is that whatever she did during the day, she was fine, because at around 7 p.m., Ebonee called her mother and said that, she had already eaten a salad, and so she wasn't going to come over for dinner. She was just going to stay home.
So is that the last contact? Or because you mentioned being seen at a police station.
Oh, yeah. That comes much, much, much later.
Much later?
Yeah, no, it's just
okay.
The timeline is an absolute disaster in this case. So this is what we've got. Her last phone call was this phone call to her mother around 7 p.m. So like that is a hard time, like a hard fact that we do know. So she called her mom, like, I'm not going to come for dinner. I already ate. And, given what had happened the night before, obviously her mom was not in love with that. But, Ebonee's 30. Like, what is she going to do?
Yeah, right. Can't force your adult children. You can barely force our children that are teenagers to do anything.
Exactly. Or the 5-year-old for that matter.
Yeah, well, he's another story.
But late that night, Ebonee's parents received a phone call that would end up changing their lives forever. Around 11 p.m. on January 15th, Ebonee's boyfriend, Antonio McCoy, went over to her apartment. I don't believe he lived there, though I'm not entirely sure, but either way, he apparently did have a key. So he went in expecting to see his girlfriend because her car was in the driveway. But when he got there, the home was empty. What he did see inside was her purse. Now, some reports say that her keys were also there, but in an interview that he gave to WECT, Wilmington's NBC affiliate, he doesn't mention the keys, just the purse. So I'm more inclined to believe that because it came directly from him, as opposed to like later news stories, which are often like playing a game of telephone in cases like this.
So is this going to be another hoagie incident?
No.
Where they say that she left on her own volition and left everything there and then just wandered off into the night?
No, actually not. I mean, honestly, I'm sure that was part of it briefly because it always is, but it actually was not a major part of this case.
Thank God.
I know. So her boyfriend, Antonio, told reporters, quote, "I looked in it," meaning the purse. "The license, I remember being there. There was cards in it, bank cards," end quote.
So he looks in her purse and he sees bank cards.
Right. Like all of her normal cards.
Do we know what his timeline was or his alibi was?
Nope. We know nothing except that he got there around 11
p.m.
PM. The night of the 15th. And that didn't even come out till like 3 weeks later. Yeah, we really don't know anything about him.
Because this is the first time you're mentioning him, and so I obviously have questions about him as far as a suspect.
Yeah, and it's the first time that I'm mentioning him because, you know, in reading all of the news articles when this first happened, he was not mentioned at all. And in some of the ones that came like a week or so later, there was something that said a family friend was at her apartment around 10 p.m. and waited for her for 3 hours and then didn't find her. And so, of course, people are like, what? That's a weird thing for a family friend to do. And so it was 3 weeks afterwards that it was her boyfriend, Antonio McCoy, who gave an interview. And so like that was the first time he was identified, and they could kind of, you know, get the full story of what that meant. And so, yeah, I don't know if he was living there or not, like I said, but he did say that he had seen her that morning, the morning of the 15th, which I have to imagine means after her father dropped her back off, because she had stayed the previous night at their house and had breakfast with them. So anyway, he got there around 11 p.m. and, you know, he saw her purse there, but according to this interview, he did not see her keys. He did not see her cell phone. But again, like all of her money, you know? So he just assumed that maybe she'd stepped out for a bit. He didn't really know what to think.
Right. So the keys are missing, but the car is there.
Correct.
And her cell phone is missing.
Yeah. So he just kind of waited, you know, but and tried to call her. So he tried to call her several times, but the calls just went straight to voicemail. And by 1 a.m., she still wasn't there. So I don't know what he knew about what had happened the day before, but he was concerned enough at that point that he called Ebonee's parents. Now, everyone was worried because, you know, Ebonee didn't like go out on Friday nights. You know, they didn't think this was the situation where she just like was out somewhere hanging out and just didn't want to come home or was just, you know, partying.
Well,
like,
especially not so close to having an incident like that.
Right. Or even if she was perhaps in like some sort of manic state or whatever, like she left her wallet behind, all her money. Where are you going to go?
Right.
Her mother, Harriet, told reporters, quote, "My daughter quit going out years ago. This is just not her nature," end quote. Because again, she's also the mother of a 13-year-old. That's exhausting.
Yeah, and she's 30 at this point.
Yeah. So on Saturday morning, because keep in mind that all this is happening at like 1 a.m. when they're realizing something might be wrong, but, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do at 1 a.m., so by the next morning, you know, when no one could still get a hold of Ebonee, because by this time everyone's trying to call her and they're just getting her voicemail, Harriet and Alfonso reported their daughter missing. But like so many of our other cases, this was a holiday weekend. So police didn't start the investigation immediately. According to Harriet, Wilmington PD didn't conduct any searches until Tuesday, February 19th, 4 days after anyone had heard from Ebonee Spears.
Tuesday?
Yeah, babe, Monday was a holiday.
Okay. Okay. Look, I get it. Like, no, I don't get it. This is infuriating to me because I'm a police officer. And as you know, I am on call for holidays and weekends. Not every holiday, not every weekend, but like there's a structure set up.
Yeah.
So Wilmington is not a small town.
No, yeah, Wilmington, North Carolina, not at all.
Yeah, it's not like a police department that has
4 officers.
Right. So why wouldn't they have a structure set up where there is an on-call detective for holidays and weekends?
I don't know, but she's an adult, which is already like several strikes against her, as we have seen in many other cases. And it just sounds like they're like, well, she's an adult, whatever. An
adult with a history of mental health issues because of either, adverse reactions to medication or lupus.
Yeah. But I don't know that the officers who were like on duty that weekend knew about any of that. I don't know what her parents told them. So I don't know if they were aware of her history.
But there was an incident the night before.
Oh, I don't think they knew. We'll talk about that.
I'm sorry. I'm just dumbfounded by this.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry. I've been a cop for 18 years. Like, holidays and weekends don't fucking mean anything.
Well, honey, we've also done 100 and now 101 episodes, and many of them have taken place over holiday weekends. And in each one, this is what happens. Like, the case doesn't get investigated until after the holiday's over. Even if it's a kid, Johnny Ghosh, like, that was Labor Day weekend. They're like, yeah, we'll get to it after we're done with our barbecue. So WECT covered Ebonee's story pretty quickly, and in an interview with Harriet, her mom, she talked about her frustrations with the way police were handling her daughter's case.
Yeah, I'm frustrated with it.
Right. So she said, quote, "We did our own search on Monday. They did their search on Tuesday. We distributed flyers and everything on Monday. Then Tuesday, they went out with a team, dogs or whatever, and searched the surrounding area neighborhood." End quote. So police did confirm that they searched on that Tuesday, but wouldn't say if they had any other searches planned.
Yeah, hey, we got around to it.
Right. And they looked and they searched the area around her apartment building, basically.
To no avail, apparently.
No.
And then they were just like, meh, well.
We tried. Yeah, so we're like 4 days into it. No clues. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do searches. Maybe we won't.
Look, I mean, I get that she's an adult, but
yeah,
you have a missing, endangered adult. Like, there should be some sense of urgency there.
Well, one would think. So Web Sleuths is really helpful with cases like this because we can usually see stories as they come out. So we know how information is presented and how that information changes as time goes on. And I talked about this with the Nancy Moyer case because it was extremely helpful to just really see the order in which things were released and like the, general public's kind of impressions of it and things like that. And the same is here because in this case, we have such a muddled, weird timeline. It's very interesting to see when certain pieces of information were released and like when other pieces of information were updated or changed. For instance, on January 26th, 11 days after she was last seen, it was being reported that Ebonee was last seen at Point at Taylor Estates, the apartment complex where she lived. Nothing I was able to find that was published at that time had information about when that sighting was. So it could have been as early as that morning when her father dropped her off after breakfast. Like that could have been the last sighting because her dad said, yeah, I dropped her off at her apartment. But then by early February, so we're talking, a couple weeks after her disappearance, there were reports of someone having seen her around 7 p.m. on January 15th. But I couldn't find any working links to the original sources, just kind of references to it. But the biggest bombshell would come on February 9th, about 3 weeks after Ebonee went missing. Wilmington police came out and said, oops, she wasn't actually last seen at her apartment. She was actually here at the police station. Yeah, so, the question, I thought you said she was last seen at the police station. Yes. They didn't apparently figure that out for 3 weeks.
What?
WPD Captain Jim Verone spoke to the media and said that Ebonee came into the Wilmington Police headquarters on Bess Street around 8 p.m. This station is only about a third of a mile or half a kilometer away from Ebonee's apartment.
So is this the same place that she was
the day before?
The day before.
Yes.
Okay. Did they not put 2 and 2 together?
No, not until 3 weeks later. At least publicly, if we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. According to Captain Verone, Ebonee came in and asked to use the phone. The person at the front desk directed her to a courtesy phone, but Ebonee apparently couldn't get it to work, so she got upset and left.
So that's the extent of her being in the police station?
According to Captain Verone, yes.
How sure are they that it was her? I mean, do they have, like, CCTV footage of it?
They do. Captain Verone didn't give any more information at that time, saying just that, quote, right now, this is still very much a missing persons case, but we're very much concerned because so much time has gone by and no one has seen or heard from Miss Spears. So we're very concerned about her welfare, and our ultimate goal is to get her reunited with her family, end quote. He also said that WPD, in conjunction with Crime Stoppers, was going to offer a $5,000 reward for information on Ebonee's whereabouts.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So my first thought, and which you've already kind of touched on, and was the first thought of many people, was, where's the surveillance video? Well, WPD didn't release it, which isn't very abnormal, right?
No.
Like, they often don't release it in ongoing investigations, and that's fine. But they did permit Ebonee's parents to view it.
Okay.
Which is good and interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that isn't even a thing. So let's compare the police's tale of the video to her father's. The police story is the one I've already given you, that she came in, asked for the phone, they gave her the front desk phone, she tried to use it, got frustrated, and walked away. But according to her father, that is not what he got from watching the footage, which was over 5 minutes long. He said, quote, from what I've seen on that film over and over again, she was asking for help and they turned their back on my daughter. I couldn't hear the audio, but I could see my daughter. I know my daughter. I know she was asking for help. I know she was, end quote. And, he later said in a different interview that she was like pacing back and forth. She seemed agitated, like she seemed concerned. And nobody really talked to her or, tried to figure out what was going on. And interestingly, I read in some random article that, police said that was the only surveillance video, like inside the lobby, that there wasn't any video from outside or anything like that. But if you go on Google Maps, there's very clearly at least one camera outside on the entrance of the building, perhaps more, that I'm not sure of. I'm 100% sure there's at least one. There could be more. And I did go back because the most recent Google Map image is from 2019 or something. But I went back to one from 2012 which was 4 years before this, and that same camera was in the image. So it was definitely there in 2016. But they're claiming that she was not caught on any video other than the lobby camera.
Well, so we don't know. I mean, you saw a camera on Google Image. We don't know where that camera is facing.
I mean, it's directly in front of the doorway. So my guess would be like the steps leading up.
One would think. We also don't know if that's functional. Like, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Okay, and listen, I know that not every police department is as fancy as where you work, but like, this is not a small podunk police department. Like, this is a large building. They put some money into this, and I get that it's not where you work, but when I was in front of your building and you were the one behind the camera, like, you could zoom in on my friggin' facial expression, and it was incredibly creepy.
Yeah, well,
I wasn't anywhere near the door. I was like hundreds of feet away, if not yards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether this police department has PTZs, but yeah, I mean, I do.
Yes. So I'm not saying that it's going to be all that, but there was a camera, and I do not buy that there was zero footage from that camera. Because again, I don't think that was the only one. I do think that there were more cameras, because there are other things that I could see in the image that looked like cameras, but I can't 100% say that they were. But there was one that I can 100% say was a camera. And I don't buy it.
Okay, but why do you think that they would be hiding that, but releasing, or well, not releasing, but talking about the footage from the lobby of the building?
Yeah, because I think that any additional footage, whatever was happening in it, would show more culpability on their part for whatever happened to Ebonee. Whether it was her being in distress, her acting erratic, whether it was something happening to her from somebody else, I think that they're just covering their asses.
Well, that seems like a bit of a stretch.
All right, well, we'll get into the story of my Therese Richardson in just a moment. Back to the footage. Police initially said that they didn't release it out of compassion for Ebonee's family.
But they showed the footage to Ebonee's family.
Correct.
So if Ebonee's family didn't want it seen, they would have said that.
Correct. And in fact, they said the opposite. Her mother immediately came out and said that they wanted it released. Harriet says that it's important because it shows what her daughter was last seen wearing and how she was acting.
Right.
And she's right, because remember, this is all coming out 3 weeks after Ebonee was last seen. And up until this point, her posters and everything had said that she was wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and Timberland boots. But according to this footage, she was also wearing a purple hoodie with staff written on the back. And that's much more distinctive.
Yes.
Than a freaking white t-shirt.
Right.
So having this image out there to the public would be extremely helpful in an investigation like this.
Yeah. Would have been extremely helpful 3 weeks prior.
Sure. But even if they didn't figure it out until 3 weeks later, still, it would have been helpful. But they would not release it. Not only would they not release the video, but like a spokesperson said at the time that they hoped they could release stills, but that has never happened.
So I am curious. So you have this incident that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 weeks later, they admit to this happening. I'm just curious, what happened? How did they
connect the dots?
Yes.
No idea.
So just randomly 3 weeks later, they're like, "Oh, we were reviewing something, and we looked at the footage of this camera."
Yeah, no, the police, Captain Verone, like he literally came out and was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, she wasn't last seen at her apartment. She was last seen here at our police station." And that was it. Like, there's no more context, no more information on investigative discoveries that led to this. It was just like, oh, yeah, here's like another piece of information that we've gathered.
And at this point, do we even have like a lead detective on this case that we know of?
Not that I know of, no. I do have a lead detective who comes in later, but yeah, I don't think I have one at this point. So, you know, when it came to the police saying that they were like trying to not release it because of her family, here it was like, no. And said, quote, "If they are trying to be compassionate to me, they would release whatever so the public can see and help find Ebonee. They're not being compassionate to me, I don't feel like. If nothing to hide, nothing to cover up, release it," end quote. And like, that's hard to argue with. So it kind of boggles my mind that they did. But this is the point where I put on my tinfoil hat. So get ready. I just find it very interesting that the police took 3 weeks to figure out that the last place Ebonee was actually seen was their headquarters. But somehow, on the very same day that this news came out, they also said, "Oh, by the way, a neighbor saw her around her apartment at 10. It should also be noted that this time later changed to 10:45. So yeah, so this story comes out that like, oh yeah, she wasn't last seen at her apartment. She was actually at the police station at 8. But don't worry about all that because a neighbor saw her back at her apartment at like 10. Okay, well, maybe it was 10:45. Don't worry. It's fine. But who is the neighbor? I don't know. Did he know Ebonee prior to her disappearance? No clue. Your guess is as good as mine.
So this was just something that they said.
Yeah.
Just a neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one piece of information that did come out, because the reporters who are covering it by this point are like, all right, what? Like, you're going to drop this whole, she's at the police station 3 weeks later. And then also there was a neighbor 2 hours after that to like, you know, make it fine that she was there. Like that had nothing to do with her disappearing. So that's strange. So they, you know, dug a little deeper and spoke to a clerk at the New York Mini Mart, which is located at 602 Nixon Street, which is between Ebonee's apartment and the police station. It's actually right around the corner from her apartment. So it's like the most convenient, you know, store to her. And the clerk there said that police never asked for surveillance video.
Perfect.
Yep. And WECT, so that's the NBC affiliate who was covering this case, they asked the department for comment, and the reply they received was, quote, "The mother is making allegations we did not do our job. I have no further comment for the media on these questions," end quote. The mother.
Well, that's incredibly retaliatory.
Mm-hmm. It immediately made me think of the Cindy Song case.
Yeah.
Right? Episode 2, for those of you who are new here. The very second episode
the family's being difficult.
Yep.
So we're having issues.
Mm-hmm. Using that as an excuse for like not performing a proper investigation.
Right.
The mother. Like calling her the mother. It's so disrespectful. Like, you know her fucking name. It's Harriet Rivers. So, okay. I understand that what I've said so far isn't exactly tinfoil hatty of me, like I promised, because it seems more like just a shitty police investigation. and general disinterest regarding a missing woman of color. But as I said earlier, this is so similar to Mitrice Richardson that when I first read this story, the hairs on my arms stood up. Now, I know you don't know anything about Mitrice Richardson. This is a case that has like stuck with me for years. It's one of the ones that is just constantly in my head. And I can't get into it very much, or else we'd be here for hours. So the short Wikipedia version of the Mitrice Richardson case is that in 2009, Mitrice Richardson, a 24-year-old Black woman, went missing in Calabasas, California. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with that area, this is where the Kardashians live. It's a very ritzy area in Los Angeles. Mitrice was reportedly acting erratically at a fancy steakhouse. And so the people there called the police after it appeared she couldn't pay her check. Los Angeles Sheriff's deputies arrived and gave her a field sobriety test, which she passed. But they still arrested her on, quote, suspicion of not paying for the meal, end quote, and possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. Now, at this time, I do believe medical marijuana was legal in California, but recreational marijuana was not. So that, I assume, would still be an arrestable offense. I don't know. She was detained at the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station. At some point, Mitrice's mother was informed of this arrest, and she brought up concerns of her daughter's mental health to the officers. Despite their assurances that Mitrice wouldn't be released until the next morning, because basically her mom was like, hey, she's had some issues, like, keep her there, we'll come get her in the morning. And the officers she spoke with were like, okay, yeah, we'll keep her, because it's late by this point, right? Like, yeah, we'll keep her, you come get her, it'll be fine. This was an arrest. It was not a major arrest. She didn't kill anybody, Despite all this, though, Mitrice was released at 12:28 a.m. from the sheriff's station, which was like a substation. It was like a very tiny little place in the middle of nowhere. Released at 12:28 a.m. while her purse, phone, and money were still in her car, which had been impounded. So they let her go in the middle of the night with literally nothing. 4 months later, on January 9th, 2010, Mitrice's body was discovered in a creek bed in Malibu Canyon. And again, there's so much more to this story. It's ridiculous and infuriating and insane, but the basic facts are similar. A Black woman who seems to be going through a mental health crisis ends up in a police station and then goes missing. The police then refuse to release the video footage because, again, there was video footage of Mitrice's visit that the LA County Sheriff's Department has also refused to release. And that was over a decade ago. Now, Ebonee's case is extremely shady to me, and the convenient 10 p.m/10:45 p.m. neighbor in Ebonee's case doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. And by this time, we're talking 3 weeks later, police also said that they had gotten her phone records, but they didn't release them to the family. So the family asked for the phone records, but the police said no. And, this does make sense to an extent, right? Because you've got to look at the people closest to her first.
Sure.
So you don't necessarily want to give evidence in the case away to potential suspects. However, at the same time, these are the people who may have a deeper understanding of who Ebonee had been communicating with the night before her disappearance. They have context that police who are just going over these phone records would not have.
These are also people that should have been investigated and either cleared or listed as suspects one way or the other immediately.
Right. And whether they were or they weren't, I have absolutely no public record. Saying either way.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they were cleared, they would have said it.
One would think.
Or if they had an investigator on this.
Yeah. But I don't know that they did at this point. Often in these cases we say, oh, we've like polygraphed the main family members. They passed, whatever. We got nothing about that. Like, we have absolutely zero insight into the police investigation other than they performed a search near her apartment the Tuesday after she disappeared. And then 3 weeks later, they said, oh, by the way, she was at our police department, and then a neighbor saw her 2 hours after that. Like, that is the extent of the information we have from the police on the initial investigation. So by May of 2016, so now we're talking like 4 months later, police had also backtracked from their statement that they weren't releasing surveillance video out of deference to Ebonee's family. Now they were saying that they weren't releasing it because it would impede the investigation. It was also around this time, several months after her disappearance, that more of her timeline was made public. Apparently, someone who worked at the nearby Boys and Girls Club said that between 7 and 8 p.m. on January 15th, Ebonee had flagged them down and asked to be driven to the club. They agreed, and she spoke to a social worker there and then left for the police station, apparently to use the phone, as we've heard before. So this is filling in that hour gap between when she called her mother and when she showed up at the police station. Because she called her mother and said she wasn't coming to dinner around 7. Then the person who was driving the van for the Boys and Girls Club said that like sometime between 7 and 8, they picked her up and took her to the club where she spoke with somebody. And then from there, she went to the police station. But here's the interesting thing. The Boys and Girls Club is a short walk from Ebonee's apartment, like not something she would need a ride to. Like, it's very close. In fact, between her apartment and the police station, the club is the literal halfway point. She could have just as easily gone home to make a call. Like, she wasn't closer to the police station. It wasn't more convenient. Like, she was in the middle point because it's a big square. And, again, keep in mind that while her boyfriend found her purse in her apartment, he did not find her phone. So she would have presumably had it with her. And, of course, it could have been dead. But again, wouldn't it make more sense to just head home and charge it and make a call unless there was some reason you didn't want to go home?
So are we looking into the boyfriend at this point?
I have no idea because there's literally no other information on this guy other than the fact that he said he got there at 11. He waited around for her, called her parents, and that's what kicked this whole thing off. There's no information about what he was doing beforehand, what the relationship was like. I saw something that said that he was actually Anaya's father, but I have no idea if that's even the case. Nothing. Like, I do not know anything about this guy. But the timeline is also wonky because the route from her apartment to the Boys and Girls Club to the police station and back to her apartment is, like I said, a literal square. And I mapped it out on Google Maps, and so we have that up on our blog so you can see it. If all of these sightings are correct, her apartment to the club to the police station and back to her apartment completed the square. Then around 10 or 10:45, depending on, I don't even know what, she left her apartment and went back in the same direction that she initially went in, like toward the Boys and Girls Club, but stopped at the mini mart, which is on the way around the corner, after asking a random neighbor for a cigarette. So that's the story that came out later. That's like the neighbor who saw her at 10 or 10:45 or something. She asked him for a cigarette and he didn't have one or said no or whatever. And so she went off toward the mini mart. But this was apparently at 10:45. And meanwhile, her boyfriend arrived at her apartment at 11 and didn't see her. And she was going to the mini mart, one would assume, to get cigarettes, right? If she asked somebody for a cigarette, they didn't have one, she went to the mini mart. The logical conclusion is she was going for cigarettes, except she didn't have her purse. She didn't have her wallet. She presumably did not have any money on her. I want to reiterate, we don't know who this neighbor is. We don't know if this is somebody who, one, even exists, if you want to be conspiratorial about it, or, two, if you're giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. We don't know if this is somebody who knew Ebonee prior to this night, or if it's just somebody who's like, oh yeah, I saw a lady who seems like that, and she asked me for a cigarette. Like, that's two very different things to me. And so what this comes down to is either a shitty investigation or a police cover-up. Statistically, I'm inclined to go with shitty investigation.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you there. I think that's pretty evident. I don't know whether I would jump to the conspiracy theory of a cover-up of some sort.
The only thing that I think makes a cover-up seem likely is that they're trying to cover up a shitty investigation. Like, that's the cover-up?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But
yes, I mean, I think that it's less likely that it's a police cover-up because something happened to her when she went to the police station that night.
Right.
That an officer is involved in her disappearance. Although, my Trace Richardson, I have a lot more feelings on that very much lend themselves to police cover-up for nefarious reasons. But again, not this episode. As a side note, I have reached out to Wilmington PD and asked them to release the surveillance footage in an effort to get more leads because this case is 6 years old and, we have no photos. And by photos, I mean stills from footage.
Right.
Or video or anything showing Ebonee on her last day before she went missing, what she was wearing. All of this is extremely important in generating tips and jogging memories and things like that. I've also asked them for a comment on this. The detective actually did get back to me very quickly and directed me toward the public information officer. He said something to the effect of, this needs to go through the proper channels. And then gave me the PI.
Yes. Standard canned answer.
Mm-hmm. He wrote it from his iPhone, though.
Well,
go. He replied to me at 10 p.m.
Hey, so he did reply.
He did very quickly, the same day.
And that is probably in their policy that they have to refer you to their PIO.
Yeah. And he did. And he gave me their email address. And so, I sent the same email to them. I've yet to hear back. But again, obviously if I do, and it's more than just no comment, I'll definitely bring you guys that information and do an update. But regardless of the reason behind all of the muddled information in this case, Ebonee needs to be found. Her daughter was 13 when she went missing, and she has gone through her teen years without her mother. Ebonee's parents have lost their baby. The last big news in this case came in January of 2022, just after the 6th anniversary of her disappearance. Wilmington Police and the Q Center for Missing Persons completed a 2-day search for Ebonee, but unfortunately found nothing. Monica Kaysen, who works with Q, helped coordinate the search. She told reporters, quote, "We didn't find any kind of clues or anything to even suggest that she was there, but it helps us to move on because the family has always questioned a lot of areas and they've been adamant. We want a really good search and we want to make sure that she's not there, and reviewing the case and just trying to figure out where to start over again." End quote. Ebonee Spears' friends, family, and coworkers continue to search for her. Harriet Rivers has always said that someone local knows something. It's been 6 years. Now is the time for someone to help her loved ones have closure. Ebonee Spears has been missing from Wilmington, North Carolina since January 15th, 2016. She's a Black woman with black hair and brown eyes. She's between 5'7" and 5'8" and 140 to 150 pounds. Ebonee was last seen wearing a white shirt, jeans, Timberland boots, and a purple hoodie that says staff on the back. She has a tattoo of a rose on her right shoulder and a butterfly on the top of her right foot. She was 30 when she went missing. She would be 37 today. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Ebonee Spears, please contact the Wilmington Police Department at 910-343-3686. You can see all the sources for this episode along with photos and videos at our website, andthentheyweregone.com.
And be sure to follow us on social, and Then They Were Gone Pod on Facebook and at ATTWG Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It will help new listeners find us. And the more people that listen, the more chances we have of bringing someone home.
And we'll see you here next week for a brand new episode.
See you next week.
And Then They Were Gone is hosted by Kona Gallagher and Ethan Flick. All research, writing, and editing is done by Kona Gallagher. Theme music is The Stork by Ketsa. Additional music is provided by Kai Engel. And Then They Were Gone is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!